I hope everybody is well. We are live with Torah now, and we are learning the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. Today, our learning is dedicated for a complete safety, please God, and security for all those who are in harm's way in Ukraine. I was just shown a video of a Israeli Givati Brigade vet who is who in his, I believe, if it's the one I think it is, he and his family live in Kiev, and there's a picture of him defending Kiev, and he said, "Even if we die, we've already beat them. We're defending central Kiev. There was intelligence. They tried to take over the government buildings, but they didn't come close. Their tanks burned before they entered the city." I think that there's a lot of strong Jewish narratives to what's going on. I know people have in Ukraine have pointed out that it's kind of a David Goliath situation, and a friend of mine, Mati Greenspan, pointed out that there's a lot of similarities because the ineffectiveness of Goliath was probably due to the fact that he was he was this giant, but he couldn't see very well, and the Ukrainians, and David, and of course as a sharpshooter, so we see unfolding in front of us this. Obviously, the whole thing is tragic. I pray for cessation of hostilities. But we know that the war is continuing, and so therefore we cannot be idle. And somebody yesterday asked me, I went to a demonstration, a protest with Ukrainians here in Los Angeles, in Santa Monica, and because I knew there'd be Jewish people there as well, in addition to wanting to show my support as a rabbi. And sure enough, one of my former students from UC Irvine, Isaac Isaac was there, and he said, he came up to me, and we ended up spending the rest of the time together, and we were they made a march around all of downtown Santa Monica, and hundreds of people. It was very inspiring. And he said, "Are we doing a mitzvah, or what mitzvah are we doing?" And I came up with two on the spot, but I think there's probably a third. So one, and I spoke about this on a podcast which is coming out on Tuesday called Orthodox Conundrum. One of the mitzvahs is Mesiras Nefesh. Whenever you do something for somebody else, right? And in this case, trying to bring attention to somebody else's circumstances, that is Mesiras Nefesh. Mesiras Nefesh is not an on-off switch. It's not an all or nothing. Mesiras Nefesh has varying degrees from, no Mesiras Nefesh, i.e. couldn't give 2 shakes, to, all in. And there are many, many levels in between. The second thing is loving your brother, obviously looking out for the Bnei Israel, the community in Ukraine and in harm's way. And I think there's another one, which is al tamod, right? We're not supposed to stand idly by while our brothers, and literally blood is spilled. And in halacha, that actually has much bigger ramifications, as we've discussed. It's come up a few times in the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, right? That standing idly by doesn't mean that your fellow has to actually be bleeding, right? It's a concept that when somebody else is in this kind of distress, that you're coming to their aid in that moment is a mitzvah, and in fact, it might even be an obligation, right? An obligation, al tamod, right? Don't is a command. You're not allowed to. that's not in the Kitzur today, which we're going to get to in just a moment, but it is important information. We are also learning for Shlema for the Cholim, David ben Sophia, Lynn Bas Pesalea, Harriet Bat Lillian, Yisrael ben Yochevet, Clarice Bat Etta, Leah, Yosel ben Leah, Amiram ben Shoshana, any other names, and Chava Bas Dina, and all those who need refuah shlema. Okay, now on to the text. We are in chapter 32 of the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. We are on paragraph 11. We're learning, if you recall, about how to take care of our health. So there's an idea. It comes actually in Masechet Bava Kama, Bava Metzia, Daf Kuf Zayin, Amud Beis, that a person should eat bread in the morning. Now, the again, I just our regular reminder that if that is good for you, you should eat it. Number 12. If you want to eat different kinds of food, you should have those things first, which have a soothing effect on the digestive system. But don't mix this with other food. You should wait some time between that and other food. So he also advises you should eat lighter food first, which digests more easily. Kegoin basar oif, like chicken, koidem lebasar behema. So if you're going to have two kinds of meat, you should have the chicken first. Basar behema daka, koidem basar behema gasa. And if you're going to have red meat, you should have the more easily digestible one first before the other. Udvarim shema'amitzim es b'nei me'ayim yochel miyad lachar achila ve'al yechel mehem harbei. And anything that has a ma'amtzin as b'nei ma'ayim, anything that has like a difficult effect on your digestive tract, you should eat right after your meal, and you shouldn't have a lot of it, right? So let's say there's something you really enjoy, but maybe it doesn't agree with you so much, so have it at the end of your meal and don't eat too much of it. Number 13, because the digestive process begins in the mouth, right, through grinding up the food in our mouth, and mix it up with the spittle. You should not swallow without chewing. Doesn't every mother tell their kids this, right? You got to chew first, right? And you're not chewing enough, usually we're telling the kids. He says it's going to be difficult for your stomach, right? So he knows that you got to chew your food. Okay. Number 14, Kvar Amru B'Siv Zayin. We mentioned above, Kibnei Adam Einam Shavim B'Mizgam. Everybody has their own nature. V'yesh L'Kal Ish Livchor Al Perfoim Ha'achlim Ha'toivim Lefi Mizgam Mekom M'Shato. Right? Everybody has their own. Literally, Mizago means their own temperature or temperament, right? But he says that since everybody has different nature, they should follow their doctor's advice, right, in regarding what they should eat for that kind of a, again, he calls it temperament, but what we're going to make that's going to stand in for today, we're going to say, people have different things, which, right, you've got people who can't digest this food or that food, right, they have people with different kinds of allergies or different kinds of health problems, right? You follow your doctor's advice to have the food that's good for you. And there's some things that are really bad for you. And a person shouldn't eat those ever. Now he's going to give the contemporary knowledge of the day, things that were not good for you to eat at all. And again, today we would just say those things which we know we shouldn't be doing, like smoking. I'll just give an example. We know we're not supposed to smoke, right? So he says, shouldn't have large fish that are salted and aged, okay? The gavina maluach yishenim and like stinky old cheese, Pico, different kinds of mushrooms which aren't good, basar maluach v'yashan, and old salted meat, v'yain megito. This is a wine from the press. Again, I'm not familiar with what that even is. And food that has sat for a while and is now giving off a foul smell. Anything that smells bad, Omar Yoter, is too bitter. Harehu leguf kamo sam. Hamavas, he says that's like deadly poison. V'yesh ma'achlim shem ra'im. There are some things that are bad if you have al einem kamo rishonim la roya. There are some kinds of food that are harmful, but they're not as bad as the things I just mentioned. You should limit your consumption of them. So, for example, like the fish, the big fish, and the that kind of cheese you mentioned, or milk which was left out for 24 hours after it had been milked. Ubasar shvarim gedolim v'siyavshim gedolim v'lechem sh'ayrim v'lechem matzos, and a few other things which he's not a big fan of. For example, meat from a large animal or a large male goat, barley bread, matzah, cabbage, leeks. We're going to get to this, right? Chatzir, batzalim, meshumim, b'harvachad, vatzanim, kol elu, machlim, ra'im, heim. He's not a big fan of them. Ve'ein, ru'iladam, lechol elu, it's ma'mad, yishom, yilibulim, odem, it's like a shamim. Aval b'yamoisachama, lo yechem minchal. So he says you can eat a little of those in the winter and not in the summer. Okay, so I'm not going to go into detail because today we would, have different opinions about what foods might be good or bad. The goal is we should be looking out for what we're eating. Number 15. So, for example, there's other foods that are not great for you. Okay, maybe today we'd say like sweets. Right? They're not great for you, right? And his example is mine. So he's going to say water birds like duck and geese, pigeons, which I take very personally because Yonah is pigeon, or dove, if you want to be nice about it. Utmarim.
Well, they're in the Beit HaMikdash, right? How can they be not healthy?
Oh, well, they're brought as a sacrifice, right? And lots of these items you'll see in the sacrifices. And that's a great question. How could it be that we're going to bring something as a sacrifice, and even something as a sacrifice that we then might eat if we were Cohen, which might be harmful? That's a great question. I'm going to ask that we hold on to that one, and that I should do a little bit of that's. I'm sure there's some of the Meforshim have discussed it. Great question. V'lechem shenilush b'shemen, oil, bread which was kneaded with oil. Dates, tamarim, sorry. V'asoiles min shenipu oisa kol tzarka ad shelo nishar bo reach mursan ein roi laharbois machlis elu. So, flour which has been so sifted that there's no bran left. In other words, Wonder Bread, right? Shouldn't eat a lot of those foods. So we found something that definitely jives with our contemporary understandings. Number 16. Le'olam yemaneh ha'adam es atzmo me'prois ilanois. And he's not a big fan of fruit from a tree. Again, we're going to learn it because we're learning Torah, but it doesn't mean that this is the advice that we should be following. He's not a big fan of the fruits from trees, especially if they're fresh. So he says, eating unripe fruit from a tree is like a sword to the body. Chruv, not a big fan of that, not chruv, excuse me. V'chein ha-charuvim, yes. So carob, ra'im lo'elam, it's terrible, shouldn't have it. V'kol perois ha'chumim. I don't like carob, so I'm v'kol perois chamutzim, fruits that are very like tart. Ra'im ve'im oichlim hem elemat b'yomes ha'chama, should eat them in the summer, only a little bit, become ha'chamim in warm places. Ta'enim, dates, anavim, grapes, v'rimonim, lo'elam toivim. Those are good. He says they're always good. And he's referring to the Rambam there, right? Ayin beRambam perak daled ukfi anira de ta'uz sofer yesh kan v'tzarich lemar shkedim b'makom rimonim. So he's pointing out that it seems that there's a typo in the Mizger Shulchan suggests, based on Rambam, that that the advice here that he's giving should be figs, grapes, and almonds, and that those are the good ones. Okay, so bein retuvim, whether they're fresh, bein yaveshim, whether they've been dried, ve'oichel adam mehem kol tzachoi, eat as many as you want. Mikol makom lo yasmid ba'achilasam afal pi shehem toivim mikol pri alanes. He says, but you shouldn't eat them constantly, even though they're the best of all the fruit trees. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it has been always a pleasure to learn and to. It's good we're going through this. We have to keep reminding ourselves that everything we eat has an impact on our health, and we will continue, please God, tomorrow. Everybody have a great day and stay safe. Please, all of our friends and loved ones in Ukraine.
Amen. Thank you.